The text message popped up at 3:47 p.m. It was from my mother, just 3 words. Dinner tonight, 6. No punctuation, no warmth. That alone should have been my first clue. I sat with my phone in my hand, rereading it like it might change tone on the third or fourth try. We weren't the kind of family that did spontaneous dinners, not with me at least. My siblings, sure. They had an open-door policy, especially when there was praise to hand out. But me? I was usually the afterthought, the occasional seat filler when someone else canceled. Still, I said yes, against my better judgment. Maybe because some part of me, the part that still craved her approval even after years of pretending not to, hoped this time might be different. As I drove over, the sky stretched gray above the suburbs. My mind wandered back to years ago, to childhood afternoons when I'd come home from school with a drawing or a good grade. My siblings would get applause for spelling bees and soccer goals. I got nods, maybe. I learned early that invisibility was safer than hoping. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the unease had settled in. I could see them all through the window, already seated, already laughing. No one noticed me walking up. No one got up to greet me. Inside, the smell of roast chicken and garlic bread filled the air, but it didn't feel warm. It felt like a performance. I sat down at the end of the table, opposite my mother, next to a cousin I barely knew. They were mid-conversation, something about a business trip my brother just took. I tried to chime in with a comment about the city, but before I finished the sentence, my sister cut me off, launching into her latest real estate story. This was the dance. I'd forgotten the steps, but my body remembered. Speak only when spoken to. Smile politely. Swallow everything. Then Mom leaned in, voice just loud enough. We were just talking about real accomplishments. Anyway, how's your little job going? Her smile was sweet poison. My brother's wife let out a laugh that echoed too loud in the silence. I kept mine in. I looked at my plate, cut into the chicken slowly. The rage bubbled under the surface, but I said nothing. I had mastered the art of stillness. Later, as I went to grab plates to help clean up, I heard her from the next room, on the phone. Yeah, no, I didn't think she'd actually show up. She usually doesn't. She laughed. The neighbor on the other end laughed too. I stood frozen, 2 plates in my hand, the weight of them nothing compared to the weight in my chest. Back in the kitchen, I set the dishes down. Mom walked in, brushing past me. Stay out of the way, she said, without looking, then turned to my sister with a wink. Can I speak to the owner of this house now? The word hung in the air. Owner. It was deliberate. She knew I had just bought a home, paid for it myself, renovated it, made it mine. She knew. This wasn't forgetfulness. This was a jab dressed as a joke. I cleared my throat. You're speaking to her, I said. She didn't even pause. You know what I mean. Someone who actually runs things. It was silent. No one laughed this time. I nodded slowly. My jaw was tight. My throat burned, but my eyes didn't water. I would not give her that. I'll be right back, I said, heading to the bathroom. The lights were too bright. The wallpaper hadn't changed in years. Pale blue flowers fading into beige. I looked at myself in the mirror. My reflection stared back, tired but firm. This is why you keep your distance, I whispered. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the folded note. My grandmother's handwriting was faint, but I knew it by heart. She had written it the day I left for college. You don't have to beg to be seen. I was 12 when I brought home a certificate for a writing contest. I had stayed up all night working on it. When I showed Mom, she smiled and said, That's cute, but your brother just made varsity. I folded the note carefully and slipped it back. Walking back to the table, I straightened my shoulders. The conversations had resumed, but they glanced up when I entered. I smiled, not a warm smile, not forgiveness. It was the kind of smile that says, I see you, all of you. They don't know it yet, I thought, but something changed tonight. Mom raised her glass to toast something, maybe a birthday, maybe my sister's new car, but I was already planning my exit strategy. The rain started just as I pulled out of the driveway, not a gentle drizzle, but the kind that made the world blurry and your thoughts louder. The windshield wipers swayed back and forth, steady and tired, like me. I hadn't even made it 3 blocks before my phone buzzed in the console. Paid for by late nights, double shifts, swallowed pride. No help from them. No congratulations either. Just as I reached for the handle, another buzz. This one wasn't from Mom. It was from Marisol. She didn't mean it like that. You always make things dramatic. I stared at the message until the screen dimmed itself. That was the moment the air in the car shifted. The betrayal wasn't sharp like a knife. It was dull, familiar, like the ache from sleeping wrong. They didn't even realize they were defending her. They thought they were smoothing things over. But it wasn't smooth. It was patterned. My silence used to be survival, keeping things calm, letting them speak over me, shrinking to fit the version of me they preferred. But tonight, silence felt different. I didn't answer Marisol. I didn't try to explain how words linger long after the dishes are washed. I just sat there and let it hang. All of it. The silence, the rain, the weight of not needing their permission to be upset. Maybe the loudest thing I could say was nothing at all. And then, like clockwork, the memories showed up. Christmas 2018. I'd spent weeks planning personalized gifts, tracking down little things each of them had mentioned wanting. Handwritten cards. Thoughtful, intentional. They laughed. "Oh, you're doing the sentimental thing again," Marisol said. And Mom added, "You always try too hard." It wasn't cruel on the surface. It never was. But that tone, dismissive, amused, like I was a child playing adult, that's what stuck. That was the year I stopped believing that effort would ever earn me belonging. They didn't want to hurt me. They just didn't care if they did. And somehow, that was worse. The car was starting to fog up. I wiped the window with my sleeve and caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. "You deserved better long before tonight," I whispered. I reached for my phone, opened the contacts, scrolled to Mom, and tapped mute notifications. It was small, a tap, a silence, but to me it felt like drawing a line in permanent ink. I woke to the sound of rain tapping the window pane, like a reminder I couldn't ignore. The apartment was still, suffused with the gray dawn light. I moved through early morning ritual, brewing coffee, flicking on a lamp, staring at the blank laptop screen, but nothing felt normal. My thoughts echoed. Mom's sorry if, Marisol's justifications, the silence I'd held last night. Each memory landed heavy. I exhaled and typed nothing. My words felt trapped behind walls I'd built long ago. The belief I'd held for years crept into my mind. It's better to keep the peace than speak the truth. I felt small, like that old excuse had become a cage. A line I once read returned suddenly. "You are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep others warm." It landed like a shard. I realized how often I'd dimmed my own light just to prevent their discomfort. I'd leaned down, hid behind quiet, swallowed my voice, all to keep balance in a house that thrived on quiet control. I saw myself at age 27, sitting in Dr. Benton's office, tears sliding down my cheeks. I had said, "I feel like my presence ruins her energy." He'd paused, voice soft. "Who told you that? Or did you just pick it up from how they acted?" I couldn't answer. I sat, hollow. That question became a seed in me, a seed that later sprouted doubt, bitterness, confusion. I drained the coffee, its bitterness anchoring me. Mom never called me a burden. She didn't need to. She'd sigh deeply when I entered a room. She'd shift her body. She'd mutter, "You're always so much." Always. I remember the family reunion, searing evening, where she stood beside Marisol, telling the relatives about her promotion, her husband's new job, her trophies. Then she nodded at me. "And this one, she writes things." It cut deeper than any insult because it was casual, routine. The guests nodded. I held my mask, smiled. A buzz broke the memory. An email from Flo, my old English teacher. Subject: "Thought you should see this." I clicked. The alumni newsletter, spotlighting my essay. The one that won state honors. Full recognition, full praise. A note from Flo. Did your mom ever share this? She hadn't. She chose not to. My chest tightened, a familiar ache. If my mother didn't want the world to know I succeeded, what did that make her? And what did that make me? I reached for a legal pad, hands shaking only slightly. I wrote the question at the top. Things I believed were my fault, but weren't. The pen moved itself. My parents' fights, my mother's anxiety, Marisol's coldness, being too quiet, being too much. Next to each, I wrote a counter. I was never too much. I was just too awake in a house that preferred silence. Each word felt like reclaiming lost territory in my psyche. Their peace had demanded my absence. Their pride had demanded my silence. I felt seams shifting. I opened an old folder on my laptop, planning to rescue an unfinished essay. Instead, I saw a folder titled Audio. My fingers hesitated. I clicked. Her voice filled the room. She always finds a way to make herself the victim. Maybe that's the only way she feels important. She was talking to Marisol, not meant for me. I froze. I held breath. It wasn't a revelation. It was confirmation. A voice that once whispered doubt now screamed truth. My throat constricted, but I didn't cry. This was not heartbreak. It was clarity. I closed the file, deleted it, not to erase the evidence, but because I didn't need it. The knowing was enough. I returned to the blank document. Fingers hovered. Then they moved. Words poured out. Not for them, not for an apology that would never come, but for me. I wrote until the room grew darker, until the rain slowed. I didn't cry that night. I didn't lie to myself anymore. I wrote, but this time for the person I was becoming. I tried to pretend it was a regular day. I got out of bed, started the coffee, and opened my laptop. I even made a to-do list. Deadlines, client deliverables, inbox cleanup. Nothing dramatic, just the motions of someone who still believed things might return to a kind of peace. Then the email came in. Subject line: Spotlight on emerging voices. I opened it and blinked. There it was. My name, my work, my design. A feature in a design magazine I'd admired for years. They called it subtle yet radical. I exhaled, half smiling. I didn't text anyone. Not yet. I let myself enjoy the small rise of pride. Maybe I was finally becoming more than just the other daughter. I scrolled down. The comments were mostly positive. Then came one with a username that looked suspiciously familiar, too similar. Nice work. For someone who isn't real. My eyes locked on it. My chest tightened. Even out here, even away from them, the shadows still reached. Compliments, I realized, can carry poison when you've been trained to mistrust them. It didn't matter how public the recognition was. If home didn't believe in you, nothing felt solid. The phone buzzed again. Group text from Mom. She sent it to our relatives. So proud of all my daughters. With a photo of Marisol and I at some charity event 2 years ago. No mention of the magazine, no mention of the work, just that vague, diluted, all my daughters. The same kind of nothing she'd been handing me since I was 13. I didn't respond in the group. I texted her privately. Thanks, Mom. Would you mind telling folks which project was mine? I waited. It felt petty to even ask, but I wanted to hear what excuse she'd come up with this time. It wasn't her who answered first. Marisol messaged me. Mom is just insecure. Don't take it personally. Right. I stared at her text. There was always this gentle finger wag from her, this don't stir the pot attitude that came dressed as concern. But I'd learned something in the past few months. Silence doesn't make you noble, it just makes you complicit. I called Mom. She picked up like nothing was off. I asked calmly why she didn't say it was my project. She paused for just a second, then said, I meant both of you equally. Sometimes I forget who did what. That cut deeper than if she denied it outright. She didn't forget. She changed was the name. Where it once read, Designed by Belle Riggs. Now it simply read, Creative Direction, Marisol Riggs and Denise Riggs. They'd scrubbed me out like I'd never been there. I sat still for a moment. Not crying, not shaking, just Clear. Then I dialed Dex. When he picked up, I didn't waste words. I think they just tried to rewrite history. Are you free tonight? I sat at the edge of my desk in the dim light, files scattered, a stack of design blueprints half organized. My fingers moved over paper and screen, watering a small fern I've kept alive for years, but my mind was filled with yesterday's wounds. The credit erased, the article rewritten, the compliments turned knives. I considered calling Mom, letting her answer for once, or confronting Marisol. I didn't. Not from fear, from fatigue. The kind of exhaustion that comes from seeing the same play repeated and knowing you're the only one who doubts the script. A quiet rage had grown inside me, one that felt like even each breath was a betrayal of my own sanity. I lit a candle on my desk, lavender, soft and familiar, but instead of soothing, it smelled like old avoidance. Then I found it. A voicemail file, tucked away in my drive, forgotten. It bore the date of a cookout 6 months earlier. My heart clenched as I clicked play. Her voice came low, urgent, speaking to someone I couldn't hear. Belle's too sensitive for the real world. She wouldn't last a week if she wasn't protected. I closed my eyes. I remembered that cookout, the laughter around the grill, the way I hovered by the edge, trying not to be seen, trying not to take too much space. At the time, I brushed it off. Now I heard it clearly. They were scripting me as weak while I was funding half the event. I opened my banking history. There it was, a Venmo payment I made for that cookout. 60% of the catering. I'd covered it. And they framed me as fragile. I saved the screenshot, saved the voicemail, created a folder for when I forget the truth. I entered a quote I'd tacked to the wall months ago. They don't just distort the narrative, they erase the receipts. The cord of tension in my chest twisted. I fractured inside, but not into tears. Not this time. I stared in the mirror. You were never fragile, I said, voice clear. You were framed that way. I looked at my reflection, tired eyes, set jaw, but something locked into place. Their erasure was a tactic. My silence had been their weapon. I sat at the keyboard and drafted a long email to Mom, a letter that poured years of hurt, confrontation, demand for truth, but I watched it sit and blink, unsent. I erased it. Instead, I started writing a different document, a manifesto just for me, not for her, not for Marisol, for myself. My phone chimed. Message from Dex. What time are we meeting tonight? I didn't explain. I typed back. See you at 8. I packed a folder, screenshots, timestamps, design files, the little folder with voicemail and payments. I dressed with purpose, not for vanity, but for war. My new self. Night came and I rolled into the patio restaurant atop a downtown building. Dex waited. 2 drinks already on the table. He looked up, eyes steady. Ready to be the owner they'll have to speak to? I sat down across from him, drew a deep breath. I sat in my home office with evidence strewn across the desk. Contract scans, email screenshots, the edited magazine pages. My heart was beating loud enough I could feel it in my throat. I reopened the voicemail and payment proofs. I traced lines, connecting the dots between the missing credit, the hidden payouts. The truth lay in the margins they altered. I recalled a line I'd read. Your silence won't protect you anymore. I swallowed hard and squared my shoulders. This was the moment I stopped waiting for permission to exist. Then my phone buzzed. The article from earlier had been updated. The credit line changed. Now it read, edited by Belle Riggs. My name glowed in the headline. That spark ignited the rest. It wasn't just reclamation, it was rupture. I told Marisol we needed to talk and booked a neutral cafe. She arrived, eyes wide. Before I could speak, she said, You're blowing this out of proportion. I froze for a beat, then pulled out printed pages, side-by-side versions, contract amendments showing her name inserted. VoIP logs, time-stamped calls where I pitched. I walked her through each deletion, each rewording, her face drained. She stuttered, Well, ownership was implied. I leaned forward. Implied is not earned. The cafe turned hushed. She sputtered defenses about family legacy and trust, but her voice cracked. Dex walked in then, as if cue card timing. He sat, placed more proof on the table. Emails from a junior editor affirming my original credit. I couldn't ignore how hard you worked in stealth, he said. Time they see your name. I nodded. This was no longer personal drama. This was rightful claim. I said we publicize it, side-by-side proof in a press release. Marisol protested that it would destroy the family image. Dex met her eyes. Isn't the truth worth the explosion? She snapped, accusing me of orchestrating a smear campaign. You always do this. You rewrite your part of the story. I held my tongue. I let her words hang. Inside, I thought, this is the pattern. Blame me for defending myself. She stood and stormed out. Dex watched her go. I whispered, she just walked out. I won't chase her narrative anymore. Dex slid a USB across the table. I looked down. Files, charts, side-by-sides. The USB label read, The Owner's Voice, Bell Version, PDF. My pulse thrummed. I pressed open. This is when they'll have to listen. I walked into the gala with evidence tucked tight in a leather folder. The light spilled across marble floors, crystal chandeliers, a red carpet swirl. Guests in gowns and tuxedos, cameras and applause. The exhibition was billed as our family's grand unveiling. Mom and Marisol celebrated as creators. I passed the front table. The program booklet listed only Marisol and Mom as developers. No mention of me. I inhaled, steady. They built this stage to hide me. Now I walk in holding the blueprints. I glanced at the table settings. Napkins folded in my signature leaf motif, my design language, but the nameplates read, Marisol Riggs. A glance, a shock. That was twist S15, the exact leaf fold pattern that no one outside our family knew I used. I stepped forward and caught a staff member. Excuse me, could you show me the original napkin order list? The staff looked nervous. A manager appeared and intervened, but I unfolded my folder, sliding the original design file across my palm. It showed the napkin fold style, my name, the draft notes. Guests murmured. They glanced toward me with sudden curiosity. Then came twist S16. During the founder's speech, Mom's voice cracked. She faltered mid-sentence, hands trembling. She stepped back, her posture collapsing under the sudden weight of her own stage. A guest whispered, she can't even finish her own introduction. I held back a smirk, but inside, my pulse raced. I let the silence stretch, letting them feel the tension I'd carried for years. When the MC called me up, I stepped forward as though I already owned the stage. Thank you for having me. As owner, I said, voice calm but resonant. The slide behind me lit up. Original contracts, the deleted credits, detailed payment logs, design files tied to my name. Cameras pivoted, faces turned, the room quieted. Marisol went pale. Mom's jaw flexed. I walked closer to the podium and delivered the line I'd waited years to say. You reprinted my legacy without giving me the credit. Tonight, I reclaim it. The room froze. No applause, no cheers, only the hum of disbelief. After the reveal, time felt suspended. No one moved. Marisol fled backstage, tears streaming. Mom stood rooted, speechless, her performance fractured. Dex leaned close to me, voice low. You just rewrote history in front of them. I felt a long release inside me. Relief, exhaustion, release. All in one breath. They expected tears. I gave them clarity. Before I stepped off the stage, I caught Mom's eye across the room. She watched me, cheeks damp, lips parted, no defiance, just recognition. I whispered under my breath, this is only the beginning. It's early, the kind of early where the sky hasn't made up its mind yet, blue or gray. I walk along the river trail behind my new studio, hands tucked into my coat, the air crisp, the trees dropping color like quiet confetti. It's the first time in a long time the silence feels like a gift, not punishment. A week's passed since the gala. The media chewed it up, spit out headlines. Some called it brave, some called it petty. Family text threads went quiet. Not one call from Mom, not one word from Uncle Ron, who once said I was the most promising girl in the family. I opened my journal, just one of many I'd half filled over the years. and I begin reading my own words out loud. Not to share, just to remember who I was when I wrote them. My studio opens in 2 days. My name, Belle Riggs, is now on the glass. Bold, centered, not in small print, not footnoted. I run my fingers over the letters like checking if they're real. You can't rewrite the past, I whisper, but you can change who you become after it. Mid-morning, a message buzzes through. It's from Marisol. I owe you a conversation, not as a sister, as a person. I sit there a moment, rereading it, not angry, not hopeful either, just curious. We meet at a cafe downtown, not far from where we used to catch buses together as kids. She's already at a table when I walk in, hands wrapped around a coffee cup like it's her anchor. Her face, tired, honest, she starts without hesitation. I didn't come to defend anything. I came because I lied, for years. Not just about the work, but about you. I tilt my head. Why now? She swallows. Because you didn't disappear like I thought you would. And that scared me. Then she tells me something I didn't expect. Mom's checked into a private center. No press, no public statement, just gone for a while. She's not well, Belle. And I think she hasn't been for longer than we thought. Marisol pulls out a box from her bag, slides it across the table. I open it. Old sketches, mine. The kind I drew when I was 12, 13, my first garden concept, a treehouse blueprint, my initials in the corner, crooked but proud. She says Dad kept them, hid them, protected them. I don't know what to say. I nod, and that's enough. Back at the studio later that afternoon, I unlock the door and step into the space. Still smells like fresh paint and sawdust. I lay the box down, place my tools on the bench one by one. Deliberate, grounding. Then, the bell chimes. An older couple walks in, maybe late 60s. Kind eyes, firm voices. They're looking for someone to design a memorial garden. Something lasting, something peaceful. They say, we want it to feel like it remembers without being sad. As they talk, I find myself reaching for a pencil. Not out of habit, out of purpose. I start sketching as they speak. And my hand moves, and for the first time in years, the silence around me doesn't feel like absence. It feels like space. There is no greater agony, I murmur, than bearing an untold story inside you. I don't say it to them. I say it to myself. Later, as the sky dims, I tidy the space. I wipe the counter, refill the pens, close the sketchbook. Then I see it. An envelope. No return address, just my name. I recognize the handwriting instantly. Mom. I don't open it right away. I sit. I breathe. Then I read, "You were always more than I let myself see." No apology, but something better. An acknowledgement. Inside the envelope, a photo. I'm maybe 10, standing by the lake, beaming, holding a sketch pad like it held the world. The last line of her letter reads, "You don't need my approval anymore," but I needed to give it. I don't cry. I tuck the photo behind my monitor, not to look back, but to remind myself how far I've walked forward. Evening settles. I move to the door, flip the lights off. A gust of wind sneaks in as I open it, lifts a sketch off the bench. I catch it mid-air, smile, and whisper, "Let's start the next chapter." It's early. The kind of early where the sky hasn't made up its mind yet, blue or gray. I walk along the river trail behind my new studio, hands tucked into my coat, the air crisp, the trees dropping color like quiet confetti. It's the first time in a long time the silence feels like a gift, not punishment. A week's passed since the gala. The media chewed it up, spit out headlines. Some called it brave, some called it petty. Family text threads went quiet. Not one call from Mom, not one word from Uncle Ron, who once said I was the most promising girl in the family. I open my journal, just one of many I'd half-filled over the years, and I begin reading my own words out loud, not to share, just to remember who I was when I wrote them. My studio opens in 2 days. My name, Belle Riggs, is now on the glass, bold, centered. Not in small print, not footnoted. I run my fingers over the letters like checking if they're real. You can't rewrite the past, I whisper, but you can change who you become after it. Mid-morning, a message buzzes through. It's from Marisol. I owe you a conversation, not as a sister, as a person. I sit there a moment, rereading it. Not angry, not hopeful either, just curious. We meet at a cafe downtown, not far from where we used to catch buses together as kids. She's already at a table when I walk in, hands wrapped around a coffee cup like it's her anchor. Her face, tired, honest. She starts without hesitation. I didn't come to defend anything. I came because I lied. For years. Not just about the work, but about you. I tilt my head. Why now? She swallows. Because you didn't disappear like I thought you would. And that scared me. Then she tells me something I didn't expect. Mom's checked into a private center. No press, no public statement, just gone for a while. She's not well, Belle. And I think she hasn't been for longer than we thought. Marisol pulls out a box from her bag, slides it across the table. I open it. Old sketches, mine, the kind I drew when I was 12, 13, my first garden concept, a treehouse blueprint, my initials in the corner, crooked but proud. She says Dad kept them, hid them, protected them. I don't know what to say. I nod, and that's enough. Back at the studio later that afternoon, I unlock the door and step into the space. Still smells like fresh paint and sawdust. I lay the box down, place my tools on the bench one by one, deliberate, grounding. Then, the bell chimes. An older couple walks in, maybe late 60s. Kind eyes, firm voices. They're looking for someone to design a memorial garden. Something lasting, something peaceful. They say, we want it to feel like it remembers without being sad. As they talk, I find myself reaching for a pencil. Not out of habit, out of purpose. I start sketching as they speak. And my hand moves, and for the first time in years, the silence around me doesn't feel like absence, it feels like space. There is no greater agony, I murmur, than bearing an untold story inside you. I don't say it to them, I say it to myself. Later, as the sky dims, I tidy the space. I wipe the counter, refill the pens, close the sketchbook. Then I see it. An envelope. No return address, just my name. I recognize the handwriting instantly. Mom. I don't open it right away. I sit, I breathe. Then I read. You were always more than I let myself see. No apology, but something better. An acknowledgement. Inside the envelope, a photo. I'm maybe 10, standing by the lake, beaming, holding a sketch pad like it held the world. The last line of her letter reads, You don't need my approval anymore. But I needed to give it. I don't cry. I tuck the photo behind my monitor. Not to look back, but to remind myself how far I've walked forward. Evening settles. I move to the door, flip the lights off. A gust of wind sneaks in as I open it, lifts a sketch off the bench. I catch it mid-air, smile, and whisper, Let's start the next chapter.